Hi, my name is Alicia and my goal is to read 200 books this year, so let's recap my first 2 weeks of reading. The first book I read this year was Witcha Gonna Do by Avery Flynn, and I'm gonna be honest, this book was 100% a cover buy for me, and unfortunately the book itself was not as beautiful as this cover. This book is a witchy rom-com about a girl who has no power. She's the only witch in her family who doesn't have any powers, but she mysteriously somehow ends up cursing her entire family. So she has to enlist the help of a super hot jerk to basically take the curse off of and save her family. And unfortunately, this book just tried to do too much. It was only 300 pages. It was supposed to be mostly a romance, so you would think that the romantic relationship between the two main characters would be central. Unfortunately, everything just ended up feeling really underdeveloped because there wasn't enough space for everything she tried to include, and the writing was really cringy at times as well. I gave this one 2.5 stars. The next book I read was The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This one I saw recommended on several people, by several people that I follow, and this one is about the adopted human daughter of a vampire king, and she has to compete in it, or she chooses to compete in a deadly competition to basically gain a wish from a goddess. During that competition, she ends up allying with one of the vampires from a ruling court, and while she's resistant to this partnership at first, she ends up really warming up to him as the story goes on. There's also a subplot of war brewing on the horizon between different vampire factions, and I think we'll get more of that in book 2. So if you like secrets, betrayals, and morally gray love interests, then I think you'll really like this one. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. The next book I read was a reread, and it's Finlay, Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead, which is the second book in the Finlay Donovan series. I reread this one because the third book is coming out in a couple weeks at the end of the month. I did the audiobook for this one, and I highly recommend them if you haven't read the series, or if you have read the series and you haven't done the audiobooks for this one are excellent. I don't want to go too much into the plot for the second book because I think it spoils the first one, but if you haven't read the first one, it's about Finlay Donovan, who is a struggling single mom. She's in a custody battle with her jackass of an ex-husband. She's meeting with her agent one day in a Panera, and she's talking about how she plans to kill off one of her characters, and a woman overhears her and mistakes her for a hit woman. When she's leaving the Panera, she has a mysterious note in her bag that ends up being a job offer to kill off this woman's husband for $50,000. Since Finlay really needs the money, she has to decide what she's gonna do. I absolutely love both books in this series. I'm really looking forward to the third one coming out, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars the second time around. The fourth book I read this month was Kiss Her Once For Me by Alison Cochrane, I think is how you say her last name. I'm honestly not sure, but it's the same author that wrote The Charm Offensive, who I read earlier last year, and I really loved that one. This is Alison's second book, and when I saw that she was coming out with a sapphic Christmas time romance, I was super excited to get my hands on this one. So Kiss Her Once For Me is about Ellie, who the year before had a whirlwind one-day romance with a girl named Jack that she met in a bookstore, and because of something that happened, they had that one kind of night together, and they haven't seen each other or heard from each other for a year. Flash forward to today, Elle's kind of having a hard time. Her mom's a deadbeat. She's about to get evicted from her crappy apartment. She gets turned down for a promotion at her current job. She got fired from her dream job. She's really having a hard time. Somehow Elle gets roped into a marriage of inconvenience with the landlord of the coffee shop that she works at. In order to sell this engagement that it's actually real and that they're in love, she ends up going to stay with his family during the week of Christmas at their family cabin up north. And when she gets there to meet his sister is none other than the girl that she had the one basically whirlwind romance with the year before. So now they're stuck in a situation where Elle and her landlord Andrew have to pretend that they're engaged, and Elle and Jack, his sister, have to pretend that they've never met each other, all while dealing with feelings that are coming up. What I didn't like about this one was how much heavier it felt than Alison's first debut novel. The Charm Offensive had a perfect mixture of romance and kind of heavy real life moments and then lighthearted, and it felt very balanced. This one felt much more tilted towards the heavier themes. With Kiss Her Once For Me, it really felt like Elle couldn't catch a break. She had so much going wrong, and it kind of skewed her decision-making skills, and that really ended up grating on me. In the acknowledgments, Alison does state that she wrote this book during the majority, or if not all of this book, during the height of the pandemic, so I understand why it wouldn't be as lighthearted as her other one, and it's not going to hinder me from picking up her next book. I gave this one 3.5 stars. The fifth book I read so far this month was Wash Day Diaries by Jamila Rouser and illustrated by Robin Smith. This is a beautifully done graphic novel about four best friends living in the Bronx, New York. It's kind of a slice of life. It shows their everyday life and their hair care routines. I absolutely loved the illustrations in this book. The illustrator did a really good job of portraying not only each character through a series of colors, but the mood and the tone was shown through the colors that were used in the book as well. What I loved about this book was how good of a job the author did in fleshing out these four best friends in a less than 200-page graphic novel. I've read books where it's just a regular novel for 400 pages that doesn't do as good of a job of fleshing out one character as this author does in 4. I really feel like you get to see a part of who these characters are. Each story takes the reader on a range of emotions without it feeling too far tilted one way or the other, and I'm really hoping that we get more from this author about these characters in the future. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. The sixth and seventh book I've read so far this month are The Vanishing Stair and The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. These are books 2 and 3 of the Truly Devious series, which is a young adult mystery series following Stevie, who gets enrolled into a private school. It's basically a school for really smart people. And while she's there, her project is to solve a mystery that the school is kind of famous for. Back when the school was founded, the founders' wife and daughter were mysteriously kidnapped and then presumably murdered. They've never found the body of the daughter, and it's basically a cold case. No one really knows who has done it. While she's there figuring out stuff, somebody else turns up dead, and Stevie's convinced that this new murder is connected to the previous one somehow. The third one was by far my favorite. I feel like it wrapped everything up nicely. It wasn't super obvious who the murderer was, even though the author left enough breadcrumbs to be able to kind of follow it throughout all 3 books. I'm not sure if it needed to be stretched out into 3 books. There was definitely some filler there, but it was a good series overall, and I recommend it. There is a standalone 4th book that I think has to do with, it's still following Stevie, but I think she's off campus, and then there's a 5th one as well, but I'm not quite sure what that one's about. I gave The Vanishing Stair 4 stars and The Hand on the Wall 4.5 stars. So that's it. Those are all the books that I've read so far in January. I'm still trying to chase the high from The Serpent and The Wings of Night, and with no luck. So I'm kind of between things right now. We'll see what I end up picking up. But if you've read The Serpent and the Wings of Night and you have any recommendations for books that are similar, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later.